Mark, if you win Saturday, you'll clinch the division. If Michigan beats Nebraska, can you root for Michigan for a week?
Nope, sorry, I can't.
Hello and welcome to Bitter Rivals with Ted and Tom, following an exciting Big Ten championship match between the Michigan State Spartans and the Wisconsin Badgers. Being a Michigan guy, I was ambivalent to what went on. It was a very entertaining game.
Not true.
Very entertaining game. But obviously my partner Ted Fox, the Michigan State alumnus, went down, attended it, and my heart bled for you for about 3 seconds.
Yeah. Hey, I tell you what, before we get into the specifics of the game, Indianapolis, if you ever have an opportunity to either go to the Big Ten football championship or basketball tournament, go. What a host city. I mean, and Tom, you can vouch for that because you went to the.
Well, yeah, I said when I've been down the Big Ten, I've been down the Big Ten tournament in Chicago versus Indianapolis. Oh my God, what a difference! The hotels are much, not to sound like we're, the Chamber of Commerce here for Indianapolis, but I'm telling you what, it's a lot better gig than over in Chicago for the Big Ten tournament. And as far as the venue for the Big Ten championship game, it's perfect because Indiana, Purdue aren't going to be in ever, so it's like it's a neutral site.
Well, and it's what? It's 4-hour drive from Lansing. It's an easy drive. All the entertainment is right there. The Lucas Oil is right next to the convention center where they had all the pregame activities. All the entertainment, the restaurants and the bars are literally a block or two away, and they really know how to put on a good party. It was crowded. I mean, you brought in 65,000 people versus the Big Ten basketball tournament, which is what, about 15,000-20,000.
Well, yeah, and there's
a lot of lines where there were planned activities and you just couldn't get in because they were over capacity.
Right.
I tried to go to one with the Spartan Fund, and as you can see with the photos that I took, there's lines right around the corner to try and get in there. But man, was it nice!
Well, that was the good news. Tell us about your experience on the losing end of a tear-jerking, the Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away. The antithesis of what happened on October 15th.
And that's exactly what I put down in my
notes. Or
notes.
October 22nd.
I'm not gonna bitch about the missed call here, the ticky-tacky running into the kicker there. Walk a mile in Wisconsin shoes. They had 2 weeks there, back-to-back heartbreakers. They had a situation where in the last game on the October 22nd, there was a lot of second guessing the following week. Was it conclusive to overturn the call on Hail Mary Rocket? Well, fast forward to Saturday night. Was it conclusive to overturn the catch, Keyshawn Martin's catch? You could argue it wasn't conclusive, but the Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away, as you said. And
yeah, it was hard. It was really hard to tell from the angle as far as when the impact of the foot was it just the toe that hit initially, which is in college.
Yeah, but you can't argue it because we were the beneficiaries on October 22nd,
right.
And unfortunately we lost out when they went up to the review. I think it's if you want to really analyze it, this is Jim Delaney's revenge. Hollis and Delaney had a rumored spat after the Michigan game about what they were going to do with William Golston.
So you're saying this came into play?
I believe. Well, I think
there's a conspiracy theory.
I think the Big Ten advises the referees for every game leading into it on what to watch for, and I think Michigan State has been on a very short leash ever since the Michigan game.
So you're saying that Keyshawn Martin was a Delaney-driven call?
No. I think if you go back and you look at the 7 games since the Wisconsin game, there were a number of extremely questionable calls where the referees basically had their hand on the flag ready to throw it.
Now hold a second. You accuse Michigan people. We never lose the game. The referees jobbed us. You're sounding very Michigan-esque right now.
I can give you a number of plays. There were two hit out of bounds. One in the first half, at the end of the first half in the Iowa game, where the quarterback was clearly inbounds. And by the way, if you look at that play and analyze it as it completely rolled out, there was a block in the back before that, Iowa player on Danico Sallin. And then there was another hit out of bounds in the Indiana game. But, that's splitting hairs. I'm not going to get
don't
into
split
it.
hair. Don't.
Yeah, and I don't want to take away from what was a outstanding season. I'm very, very happy for the
Well, what Michigan
team.
State does, in this bowl situation, now there was a lot of preloaded dissident Michigan before even the BCS announcement came out. Who cares what bowl game that you really go to? When there's 35 bowl games, 70 teams, folks, out of 119 go to bowl games. But 35 of those 119 teams end the season on a high note.
Yeah.
And that's the good part about college football.
Let's get into that on the next segment.
Yeah, but as far as Michigan going to the BC Sugar Bowl, fine. I mean, they get the $10 million, but they get it for the league. They spread it out. Don't diss on Michigan.
They get $10 million and they spend $12. They spend like a drunken sailor at their bowl
games. They can do that. And the reason they're going there, because they're America's team. Because everybody wants to see them. That's why they jumped over the TCU.
You're getting ahead of yourself. We'll be back after these messages, which we don't have.
Then why do we need to stop? We've been fooling you. We've been pretending that we have commercial messages. We don't. Let's just keep rolling this thing, okay? Back to this. Skip that segment. We're rolling, okay? That's why they're playing in the Sugar Bowl, because they're American. Because everybody wants
No.
They're a brand.
Okay, they are America's team, like the Yankees are America's team, like the Cowboys are America's team. They have a broad following and hatred. So they have a broad audience. So they've got their crowd that have a interest in them as a team. Then they have this whole larger crowd of people that just want to see them get stuck.
Right. So that's why they're in the BCS. Whatever the reason, that's why they're there. I don't care what bowl game they're in. Just win the damn thing.
Wait a minute.
Win the bowl game. Let me finish. Win the bowl game, because it sets the tone for spring practice, the whole attitude, recruiting. Win your frickin' bowl game. To Michigan State, win the bowl game. Who cares where it's at? Go down. D'Antonio's dropped 4 in a row. Okay, it's time for him to win a bowl game. You got Georgia, who has a good defense. I texted you about how impressed I was with the Bulldog defense against LSU, but it's a winnable game. They better take care of business.
And I agree. And, I think you got to stop talking about BCS Bowl, because there's only one BCS Bowl game that counts, and that's the national championship. Anything beyond that is just window dressing. And if any teams have a beef, it's Arkansas, number 6, versus Kansas State, number 8, that are playing in the Cotton Bowl. And then you get Michigan that leapfrogs all of them because of the quote-unquote marquee value of Michigan. It has nothing to do. I heard a very interesting analysis on the BCS Bowl selection program on ESPN last night by Robert Smith, and he said he was analyzing the difference between the best team versus the most deserving. And what Robert Smith said was, how bad are you at your worst, and how good are you at your best? And unfortunately, if you use that analysis, we were pretty bad at our worst.
Exactly.
If you look at the Notre Dame game, and if you look at the Nebraska game. So, I look at that, and I can be somewhat balanced in objective in terms of where we are in the bowl scheme of things, and I like our matchup. I think that's a winnable game for Michigan State.
Absolutely. Now, because State wasn't you had to be in the top 14 to qualify in the BCS rankings to qualify for a BCS bowl.
Yeah, but I think it's throw out the last human polls of the season, because there's so much shenanigans and so much gamemanship that goes on with the coaches poll, with the AP bowl poll, with the beat writers that are covering their teams and have a vested interest. You see some really wacky leapfrogging in those last polls, just to jockey for position.
Well, it is interesting the emotions it brings out in people. And in the commentary, well, Michigan State should be going to the BCS. They beat Michigan head-to-head. Well, you know what? Then Iowa State should be in the Fiesta Bowl. They beat Oklahoma State head-to-head.
Well, again, using Robert Smith's analysis, Oklahoma State is not there because they were so bad at their worst in that Iowa State game. They should, you can understand why they didn't get selected for the national championship.
That's a very valid point, and for a Buckeye, Robert Smith's pretty smart. I think that pretty much says it all. And that's a point that has not been brought up before. Everybody focuses on who beat who and as opposed to who lost to who. So it'll be interesting, and looking forward to the bowl season. Granted, it's these 35 exhibition games, whatever, or 34 of them, and you have the national title game on January 9th, well after New Year's Day, when everybody's back to school, everybody's back to work. I just wish that we went back to the old days. Had everything on January 1st leading up to that, nothing beyond that, and they went to the voters' booth because it's still subjective right now until you have a playoff.
And I am just happy that they pushed the Outback Bowl to 1 p.m.
Well, it used to be 11 o'clock. You used to hate on me or make fun of Michigan being in an Outback Bowl. Now they're at 1, but now you're going against the Capital One Bowl. I used
to call it the Set Your Alarm Clock Bowl. Because it began at 11 o'clock in the morning.
Right after New Year's, after hanging out on New Year's Eve. So it'll be interesting to hope the Big Ten. They got 10 teams in it. Let's hope that they do better than they did the non-conference game and show some credibility and win, especially against the SEC, and in some of these matchups. When all we hear about the SEC, they've won. This will be 6 straight titles, 7 straight titles in a row, because obviously there's going to be a recipient this year.
Yep.
Anyway, we'll be back after this. Bitter Rivals, Ted and Tom.